So ultimately I wish we hadn't had to renumber, but I prefer the title, prefer the logo, and yeah, and so it was a shake-up.
I actually, I prefer the, see, I told you. I prefer the title, I love the logo, and I feel more comfortable drawing Lost Light because More Than Meets the Eye was a specific thing. I think Lost Light is a specific thing, different and yet the same. And I'm more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Just so everyone.
Yeah, so it's got a different identity. What was I going to say?
Sorry.
No, I was rambling on and on about stuff.
I noticed as well. I understand.
Thank you. That's it. It was the other part of Chris's question about to what extent the switch from More Than Meets the Eye to Lost Light affected storylines and plans that I'd had. So there wasn't a huge lead in time. Obviously, season 2 of More Than Meets the Eye was going to finish, was going to climax with Dying of the Light. So that was always going to be issue 50 to issue 55. At one stage it was going to climax in issue 50, but by this stage it was going to be a 6-parter, finishing with 55. Had things continued and More Than Meets the Eye continued, then we wouldn't have moved straight from Dying of the Light into the Functionist Universe arc. We would have spent some time with the Mutineers first, so we'd have had the end of Dying of the Light, still Time Return, what was it called? Yeah, Time's Return, yeah. And then we would have had some stuff on the Lost Light with Getaway, we would have explored that a bit more, probably for 5 or 6 issues, and then we'd have returned to Necromorph.
Oh, we've had a lull. I thought that was something you were continuing on there.
Talking too much.
Would you like me to say something?
Please, talk about something.
I mean, obviously I came into the title from issue 1. It was, I'm the new guy on the blog, not only in terms of working on Transformers IDW comics, but being here at this convention. This is my first TF Nation. It's been amazing, I have to say. For those who don't know anything about me, and why would you, I've been in the industry for 14 years. I've worked on things like Judge Dredd, and I've done some Spider-Man, and I've done a lot of stuff. But Transformers was really kind of where I wanted to get to, but there was stuff that I wanted to do beforehand. And I've kind of done everything I wanted to do beforehand, so that's kind of why I put feelers out for Transformers. And I got the cover to Sins of the variant cover to Sins of the Wreckers, and on the back of that I was offered Lost Light. It's kind of extra special for me. I don't know if anyone is aware, but James and I were in a fan club years and years ago called Transmasters UK, and there's a few TM UK people around. Matt down there is in the front row, and I mean, Andy's one of the organisers of the con. Is he the only TM UK organiser of the con, or are there more? Oh, you would know better. Anyway, there's TM UK kind of filters through kind of everything that goes on, I think, in the UK Transformers scene, right? And we worked together on fanzine stuff, and though you used to do a lot of prose stuff, and I think I'm right in saying, if anyone's going to prove me wrong, it'd be Matt, but I think I'm right in saying that I was the first guy to illustrate one of your stories in strip form with Atonement. Is that right? Everything before that was prose, I think, wasn't it? Yes. So I was the first to do one of James's strips, and someone refuting me. No, I'm going to ignore that. I'll pretend that didn't happen. And now I'm back again, and we've come full circle, and we're working together again. And personally, it feels kind of fabulous, right? The team's pretty good. The team's pretty good. We're with Joanna on colours. It's a bit of a well-oiled machine, really. Yeah, it feels.
Yeah, no, Jack's right. We collaborated years in the 90s on fan strips together. But we sort of knew each other. We fell out of touch, really, didn't we?
Yeah, I couldn't stand you for a while.
No, jealous of my success, Jack retreated into a world of his own.
Yeah, it's entirely true.
But the other elements of Season 3, More Than Meets the Eye Season 3 that changed a little bit. Anode was always going to be a new character, but she would have been introduced into the storyline in a different way. Lug wouldn't exist were it not for The Lost Light being launched in the way it was.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was no... I mean, I say there was previously no need for Lug. The ideas, the storylines I had planned for Season 3 didn't call for another character like Lug.
Right.
Now we have Lug, then you know, and Anode and others, then the stories have changed and they've made their presence felt, and they will continue to have a part to play, obviously. But back then, just like when, you know, in Season 1, when we didn't know Megatron was going to turn up, you know, things change and we move the pieces around, we accommodate new characters, and they give rise to new storylines. So Lug is a Lost Light addition in a way that Anode isn't or wasn't going to be. But beyond the Functionist Universe adventure, which would have been different in shape, but beyond that Functionist Universe adventure and the introduction of Anode and the return to the Lost Light, then we're talking sort of 15 issues into the speculative More Than Meets the Eye Season 3. It was getting vague beyond that. Beyond that, I'd say that. I mean, there's big, what I would call sort of tent-pole events or revelations that have to happen at certain points. So I knew what they are going to be, but the gaps in between, the Season 3 stories hadn't really taken much shape when Lost Light was announced.
You looked at me as if I had something to say.
No, I was looking at Chris as if to say.
Well, you just brought up Anode and Lug, and I think as characters we will agree they warrant a little further discussion. Well, Jack, they're some of the first new characters I presume that you designed for the series.
Anode was the first. Yeah.
There have been several new characters that you've designed for the series as well. I mean, would you like to talk us through some of the new designs you've created and what your favourites are? Inspirations?
Yeah, I would say that Lug is probably my favourite of the new characters. The brief from James was these are two female characters, but we don't want to go the kind of traditional robo enlarged chassis, if you take my meaning, and the cinched waist and the long legs and high heels, makeup. And I was immediately, oh, thank goodness, because I thought I was going to have to fight you on that. Because I'm not a huge fan of those things. And they have their place, and I have great respect for if that's what people want to see, fantastic. Everything's subjective, but I kind of don't want to see that necessarily. And when James said that they'd be a little more androgynous, I think Anode Anode is more feminine than Lug, intentionally. Did you have something to say? Please. Oh, okay.
I'm enjoying the ride.
Don't tease me like that. So the fact that Lug is a female and is such a boxy little blob, that's why I love her. And it seems to me that that's a large reason why a lot of people have taken her to their hearts. People have gone to me just this weekend saying that they love her massive hands and her big feet, her squat little legs. And that's all things that I kind of programmed into her, if you like, when I was designing her. Aside from those two, we had the Decepticons that Fangry had kind of a soft design because he's kind of based on the toys. I'm very much, I love the toys, and I prefer to take my inspiration from the toys without kind of sticking rigidly to the designs. Anyone who picked up the Lost Light character Bible that I've had this weekend, which is now sold out, and had a look through, you'll probably see that some of the protector bots look more like their toys than perhaps they have. Rook was a bit of a blank slate. I think it was only seen kind of background panels in Vinyl Wars. Blades, though Blades looked a certain way in More Than Meets the Eye, and I drew him that way for issue 10, and then when I went back to find reference to someone else in Combiner Wars, I noticed that he had the toy design, and we had I sent a frantic email out, didn't I? I said, do you mind if I change it? Because as far as I'm concerned, if the last time he was seen he had that toy design, that's how it's going to look. Otherwise then we've got a continuity problem. and I will not countenance continuity problems. So there's soft redesign. On the subject of continuity, I don't want to redesign anything that's come before, because that's how. I mean, it's kind of Transformers Star Trek, isn't it? In a way, and those costumes changed it slightly, but through those 7 seasons, you knew who you were looking at. I don't want to suddenly. Early on, some of the feedback was that I should have redesigned Rodimus so that he wasn't quite so spiky, because that would suit my art style. And I'm not sure how they came to that conclusion, but I couldn't unpack that or get to the bottom of that, because I mean, I don't make him look either like a cloud or a needle, do I?
Neither cloud nor needle.
Neither cloud nor needle.
That's the ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
That's your design palette.
yeah. Actually, it's truer than you know. So very much not a great deal to design, which is great. I hate designing them. I absolutely loathe designing them. I hate trying to work out how things transform. Cannot stand it. I love drawing established Transformers, but people don't ask me to design them, even though you do. I tend to nick them. A lot of people will know that. I do nick them. Yeah, and that's how I've built up my collection. But aside from my petty theft, anyone who's looked even remotely closely at issue 1 of Lost Light, I can't see young Nicholas in the cloud, or can I? Yeah, I just caught you just before you put your hand up. I did say young Nicholas in the cloud. I'm obsessed with clouds, obviously. I did mean proud, obviously. But yeah, he came to the table today and he asked the question, is Lug based on Rewind because of the she transforms? I think is it the one time someone transforms in Dissolution? Probably is.
See how quickly it's fitted into the creativity.
And yeah, she is totally based on Rewind, partially because I don't want to have to think about how someone. I don't want to invent a new way for someone to transform when there are 88,000 Transformers out there who already transform. I don't want to come up with a unique way. And also, because I'm a massive nerd, I want to buy a Rewind and make him into Lug. Stockade, Revenge of the Fallen Stockade is who Rapid Fire is based on. I'm utterly unashamed about this, as long as they don't look just ridiculously the same. It's fodder for customizers, and I don't have to do more work than is humanly possible.
The more you talk, the more the revelations just keep.
Yeah. Surely it's better that I concentrate on bringing enough as much emotion out of both the characters and our hapless audience than worrying about how someone transforms.
Here's a fact. As you were talking, I was thinking about the genesis of Anode, and I remembered that she was originally going to be introduced as part of the Slaughterhouse storyline way back in season 2, and they were going to find her. The idea being that the other Lost Light had picked up stowaways and had new crew members and new additions as well, and that was when she was. This is going a long way back.
Was she going to be more tragic?
Yes, actually.
That was where she was.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't going to die at the end of that one because
not at the end of that one.
Yeah, no. So this is the. Unlike so many other people in that storyline, in that particular 2-parter, she wasn't going to blink out of existence or be found dead or whatever. So no, but there was good reason. Trust me, there was good reason to delay her entrance. And actually, it's a different character. The Anode you're meeting now is a different character and plays a different role to that Anode.
So we just wrapped up the Functionist Universe story, Dissolution. It took me a moment. And that was very much a transitional story, I feel, for Last Night. You said it wasn't going to be originally where you would have gone next if season 3 had just carried on through More Than Meets the Eye. So, what prompted the decision to go there first? And you just talk us through the story.
So, well, I mean, I wanted. It was about it being Lost Light and starting from issue 1 again. and I think I've said before, it was an awkward moment in the overall storyline because we've ended Dying of the Light. You've had a mutiny. You've had the core cast displaced from the ship after which the title is named. You've blown up a planet. You've ostensibly killed them, although obviously no one thought they were dead. But you've blown up a planet. It's a difficult starting point, for new readers. But the alternative was starting Lost Light on the Lost Light with a horrible captain, although he has his fans. But, a captain that's just stabs everyone in the back. And to be honest, a supporting cast on the Lost Light who, maybe ironically, given that some of them are better known, because they're from 84 and 85, but a cast of characters who were not going to be the main characters going forward in this book. And so we had to start. We had to pick up where we left off on Necroworld. Had the Functionist Universe storyline unfolded as originally intended, what you probably would have seen is 4 or 5 issues exclusively in the Functionist Universe. We wouldn't have had to jump between Necroworld and Functionist Cybertron as much as we did. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to try and give all of the main characters some panel time and some attention and some introductory moments. So if you review that story, whether it's Anode and Lug and Velocity and Nautica and that sort of cohort, or the Functionist Universe, explorers, Rodimus and Co, or Swerve and Ten and Cyclonus and Whirl, everybody gets a little bit of time, and then you've got Brainstorm and Nightbeat, and then you've got Rogue. So there's a lot of characters, but they each get some time, they get some things to do in that story. And as a result, it's pretty packed, it's quite busy, it does jump around a bit. And I was saying to somebody before at the table, now, I'm proud of Dissolution, but now we're past Dissolution. You're seeing a two-parter, nice and separate, on a new planet, a fresh location. Because that's the other thing, I was conscious we would have been on Necroworld for a long time, so it's nice to be somewhere different. Then we're back on the Lost Light at last. So it feels like Lost Light itself is settling down, and it's picking up its own pace a bit now. So I'm not downplaying Dissolution. Like I said, I think it looks great, and I'm proud of the way it panned out. But it'll always be the story, in part, that had to be, because of the circumstances around its creation.
And probably the biggest development that's come out of, well, obviously the Functionist Universe was always on the cards because we saw it set up during the Chaos storyline, and perhaps the biggest consequence of the whole thing was the removal of Megatron from the series. To me, that seemed an inevitability, and Megatron had become quite a divisive character by the time it had happened. And was that always the intention, and what prompted that decision to do so?
And the decision to have Megatron end up there probably is one of the biggest examples of an unplanned development within More Than Meets the Eye. Sometimes we're just going to call it More Than Meets the Eye, but the overall story, I can't remember exactly. I knew that he would stay there long before I started writing that particular arc, but prior to that, no, the idea was that Megatron would be with us to the end. He would clearly survive the DJD encounter, his sort of faith shaken, but his sort of pacifism intact, and then he'd be with the crew until the end times. Because there was the trial, there was the ultimate destination of his character and his fate. But as I sort of spent more time shaping the Functionist Universe story, and this is before Lost Light, but thinking about what would happen in that universe, it just made a lot of sense to me. It was a neat way of ending Megatron's time with us, and he had, I think one of the reasons he was becoming divisive as a character was because he was very dominant. And season 2 obviously was about Megatron. Season 2 is Megatron's story. But he's one of those characters, beyond, or after Dying of the Light. It would have been odd to me to have him not relegated to purely a background character, but he's so dominant a personality. It seemed easier for me to take him off stage altogether, you know. But again, another issue around the relaunch was that you had two lengthy stories back to back, which were to slightly different extents about Megatron. You know, I know when we were getting feedback around Dissolution, and some people were saying, you know, God, here we are with Megatron again, and he's with his arguments with Rodimus and about his fate and the decisions he's having to take. And I could see why to some that would be frustrating, and it would feel more of the same. But I knew that this was his swan song, so you know, these were necessary motions he had to go through and arguments he had to have, because by issue 6 that was that.
And within the opening story arc, it wasn't a brand new world that had been set up, as I say, but it was definitely something brand new. And Jack, I suppose a lot of the design work on the console and other inhabitants of the Functionist world had been done, but perhaps when you were coming on board, this was not what you expected that you would be working on. You had a pre-established cast, so how did you approach it?
Yeah, I absolutely. I thought that I just assumed that it would be on the Lost Light, but that was when I knew that I was coming on. I don't think we were even into. We had issue 50, maybe we had 50, but certainly I didn't know. I didn't see the end of the story until I was working maybe even on issue 1 of Lost Light. I saw the end of Dying of the Light. So yeah, I was prepped, and I started background work on the Lost Light and I was building swerves, and then I was told that it was going to be the Functionist universe, so I kind of had to look at that. And I didn't, although we had seen it before, and I wanted to bring in the elements that I kind of think are important, like the info screens. I think are a massive part of the Functionist universe, the blimps. But I didn't want to stick rigidly because a lot of it is down to style, and if you try to stick rigidly to what's gone before, you will compromise your style. And to me, the Functionist universe isn't an obvious dystopia. Some people have said that it should be grim and gritty, but actually it's kind of the opposite of grim and gritty. It's clean and sterile.
Oh, visually, yeah, it's very well maintained.
Yeah, so while it's absolutely a dystopia, it doesn't appear that way on the surface. So I kind of wanted it, I really relished the whole thing of the very pristine buildings. As much as I like drawing ruined Cybertron, we've seen that a lot. And it was nice to get to, and the fact that all of the kind of background cast and the bots that are in the crowds are all, they have a function, obviously, because that's what it's all about. So they're all mining vehicles or construction vehicles. So that meant I was able to draw my chunky bots, because they're the ones that I don't like skinny bots. Massive feet and huge hands.
And a lot of Unicron Trilogy characters.
A lot of Unicron Trilogy characters. And I tell you why, because not only had they not really been seen in IDW, they are all chunky. They've all got big feet and big hands. But it's a way of populating a background without having to slavishly design a lot of characters, and also not to then have a load of characters in the background who are obviously ill-defined in terms of detail. So I was able to just go grab all those toys, to just have them in front of me and just whack and clone them as well, because it's a Functionist universe. I mean, they're going to be clones of one another, because it's just, yes, you 1,000 mining vehicles, you go off and mine.
It's funny you should say that, because I said before that in one reality, the Functionist universe 5-parter, 6-parter, when it doesn't have to alternate between universes and attend to the needs of other characters, when it was much more about spending 5 issues in that universe, I did a lot of work about how that universe would function, pun intended, and when we got nearer and nearer to Box, you were drawing it actually, and I made a change to the dialogue on one of the last pages of issue 1. Because it was only then I decided, much as I would want to explore a particular subplot, and I'll tell you what it is in a minute, I just wouldn't have time to do it justice. So, if you like, the pure version of the functionist universe, we spent more time exploring what it was like to live there, and you'll recall in Elegant Chaos there was all these messages flashing up, and I think that I saw a badge has been made actually, I was wearing it yesterday, about smile, today is good, tomorrow will be better. And one of the themes of this second visit to that universe was about obligatory happiness, and how there was mood measurements, so you'd be assessed to see how content you were, because it was a way of detecting potential rebellion. So there'd be I can't remember the term now, but at the end of issue 1 of Lost Light, when you've got the little drones floating around, and our heroes are sort of captured. Originally, Ratchet or somebody was going to be scanned for contentment, and there was all these sort of mood destabilizers or mood stabilizers. There were ways in which the Anti-Vocationist League could fake happiness and all this stuff. And so it's going to be about the sort of oppressive, sort of more emotionally or non-emotionally driven side of what it's like to live in that dystopia. So that was going to be a much bigger part, but we just didn't, the amount of time you need to explore those concepts and do something with them. We just didn't have that space. And the other thing which we were going to do more, I had in mind of doing more of originally, which didn't even make it to the Dissolution script, was this notion of, and you've just reminded me of it, of individuality within the Functionist universe, because it's really inefficient to have 200 million differently designed robots. So we went there a little bit with Rewind in the Elegant Chaos, in the custom built now. But the idea that since then, there's more and more cloning essentially, but there's fewer and fewer deviations from core designs. If you're going to start constructing people cold, and you've found a way to get sort of permission from primers to do that, then why go to the effort of differentiation? So these more sort of abstract, high concept things, there would have been more of those in the original draft of the Functionist Universe story.
Just want to bounce it back actually to something Jackie mentioned earlier there. The Unicorn Trilogy toys. Sorry, that's piqued my interest. I don't know what all that was on, Miles. The Unicorn Trilogy toys just piqued my interest.
Yeah.
Because it occurred to me when we were talking about your history of Transformers fandom. Have you remained a Transformers fan through your life and your professional?
Absolutely.
James, by your admission, you slid away from Transformers for a while. So you were with us through the Unicorn Trilogy.
Absolutely. I was 9 in 1984. I know I don't look 42, but it is what it is. So yeah, I was 9 in 1984, and initially wasn't interested in Transformers because it was brand new, and I assumed, because my brother had got Bumblebee and Brawl, that it was all cars, and I wasn't really interested in cars. I was a wildlife nut as a kid, and we went out on a one weekend, and he was looking to get another Transformer of some kind, and I think I was going to get a He-Man figure or something. And we went to the Transformers. It was like a spinner rack was the first thing in the shop, and that's where my brother went to. And I went into it just bored, and as it spun around, there was the cassettes, so Frenzy and Laserbeak, and Laserbeak that was it, because it was an animal. And from that moment, so I say 1984 because that's the year we will know. But over here, was it 84 or was it 85?
I had the same problem.
Yeah.
I remember what my first toy was, but I can't think of the year.
Yeah, that's a point I made that really no one's going to care about. So yeah, it was either 1984 or 85. Let's not stress over it. Yeah, from that moment, it was an obsession that has never gone away. And I stopped counting my Transformers purely because a lot of them have now been packed away in a one-bedroom flat. No, I've still got them all. They're in crates. I stopped counting at that point, but have not stopped collecting. And I was at the 600 mark then, and I have absolutely no idea where I am now. And my husband is terrified of what the answer to that is. When we move, hopefully going to move next year, the requirements for the house are a second room for a studio for me, and if that's big enough, it will also be a toy room, or we might have to have a toy cellar. Because I don't know. We were walking around on the Friday, so the dealers were just setting up, and we were walking around. You kind of know, you're less familiar with the toys than we are. So a lot of it was Titan's Return was quite a revelation to you.
That's the range that's come closest to making me fall off the wagon.
Yeah, and although I'm familiar, I know what's coming out. I keep up with the news stories, and so I know everything that's here. I know it exists, or that it's about to come. It was about to come out. But I've never seen this much, and there's not much here now. But I've never seen that much in one place. And I think we were over in demand, and I just stopped and said to James, "What is it about them?"
He had tears in his eyes. He was crying actually. I said, Jack, your face is wet.
And he said, "I don't know." But there is. Surely that's why we're all here. There is something about them, and I know that I'm never gonna. As long as they make them, I'll be buying them.
I just want to, because everyone's seen me look on I wasn't just being really rude. I was looking at the script to Lost Light 1 to find out what changed. So the script had been written and had been drawn. We were at the proof stage of the issue, so it's a final check before it goes to print. And yeah, page 19, panel 2, balloon 2, and I put change mood test to chest cavity search. So that was when the decision was taken. We weren't going to go down the mood test, and because it was going to parallel the mood suppressant thing. So
that's such a cheery story.
Was that happy? Well, they're all happy, aren't they?
Yeah. Actually, you mentioned about I wasn't crying in front of the toys, but prior to that, we arrived pretty much at the same time, and we'd gone for lunch, and then we had a creators one-on-one meeting in James's bedroom, and I realised as I said, well, that sounds
it was very creative.
I've been walking with a limp ever since, but he just sat there and just reeled off what's going to happen over the next however many issues it's going to be, and I am a very emotional man, but I was crying. They never actually tumbled forth, but it was just at the end of it. I just had to. It's going to be. It's going to be wonderful and joyous. Yeah, it's going to be wonderful and joyous. Everyone's going to go home and live happily ever after, obviously, because we know that's how you work.
On that worrying note, I think we'll open up to questions from the audience, so let's see some hands. Oh, over here. Oh, do we have a runner or anybody with another mic or guys? No? Okay, I guess I'm coming down.
Yeah. Challenge Annika.
So old.
I know. There's two people who know what the 80s were.
One of them is Annika.
Hello. I was wondering if I know Megatron wasn't originally meant to come into the series, like that was an additional thing from IDW, but what would the original plan for the DJD have been if Megatron hadn't come into season 2 and been on the Lost Light?
That's a really good question, actually. It was going to be. It was a Chrome Dome Rewind related problem, and I know they're not Decepticons, but it was tied to the Dominus Ambus. Spoilers for some people; they're just starting out. But yeah, it was going to. They were still going to be the. They were going to be they were going to be the baddies. They wouldn't have ascended to sort of. They wouldn't have been the seasoned baddies. They were going to run into the scavengers again. So if anything, they were going to be sort of the recurring sort of the nemesis for the scavengers, and they were going to cross into the main storyline through the Dominus Ambus connection and the rewinding Chrome Dome.
One of the early ideas for Anthology when we started out season 1 involved Ravage stowing away on the ship, which was, as we all know, used in season 2. How do you think things would have gone differently if he'd have been around in the first season?
So how would things have unfolded if Ravage had been a stowaway from the beginning? I mean, that's you're making me think, because Ravage, Ravage not being on the Lost Light from the beginning, that's I hadn't even worked out the first season stories before. I knew that Ravage was off the table very, very early on, so I didn't really think about how his presence on board would have an effect. That's how early in the process he became unavailable. But it's sort of purely from a speculative perspective. He would have been discovered. He would have been integrated into the crew. There probably would have been, because he was going to be there instead of Cyclonus. That's how far back we're talking. So I'm not saying there would have been a Ravage tailgate. Although that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Shapes. But he would have been sort of our token Decepticon, and it would have been, through stories involving Ravage that we explored how the Autobot crew adjusted post-war to living alongside the Decepticons. I'm going to try and be quite brief with the answers so we can get questions in.
Quite right.
Hi. I think I think it's fair to say that since More Than Meets the Eye started, the world's political stage has got much worse. And Lost Light is an incredibly progressive comic. Was it always going to be that way, or has it evolved into that as a reaction to give people hope and things are good?
No questions so far, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I suppose it's difficult. It's difficult to write something, and for your politics not to show through. I was doing an interview yesterday, and I said, and I maintain, it's not. I don't want it to be a soapbox thing. I certainly, I'd make a distinction between storylines which involve a diversity of characters and a range of which are good in terms of representation. For want of a better terms of identity politics, I think it's always good. I always wanted to do that. In terms of sort of making broader points about political belief systems and ideology. Again, it was through. Hopefully, it happened quite organically, because it was through exploring Megatron's motivation and his character arc gave lots of opportunities to reflect on things politically. But in that instance, Megatron came first. The need to give Megatron an arc came first. The extent to which that was political came second. It wasn't me thinking, I want to sort of make some tub-thumping points about equality and about distribution of wealth and all that stuff. That's very much second. Having said all, so basically, I don't approach the Lost Light as a political mouthpiece, as a way in which I can make my political beliefs known. But I did, with the end of Dissolution, by the time I'd come to write that storyline, I think we were down a certain path globally where you could see where things perhaps were heading. And so that maybe is one instance, or the most explicit instance, and I'm thinking of Megatron's speech at the end, of sort of saying, in real life we seem to be heading in this direction. I don't think that's a good direction to head in, and it's worth remembering these things, before we go down there. The talk about empathy and about trying to teach, trying to understand. But yeah, I think that's an exception, and I know we have the occasional sort of nod towards contemporary political things, or things like British things, really like Ofsted. I mean, those are I don't want to make a habit of that. That's a bit of an Easter egg thing.
I feel like you've been toning down the Britishisms. You've been taking polls on Twitter on whether to include them or not of late. Here's our next question.
Hi, question for Jack for a change. Are there any You said you've kind of inherited a lot of the character designs and not wanted to change them. Are there any characters you absolutely adore drawing? Just
hang on. I can't hear a thing. So I think if I come down, this isn't going to do a weird feedback thing if I come down here, is it? It's going to walk among my people. Go on, love. Go on, it's my play. Everyone says if you've not done this before, come on.
No, I haven't. Are there any character designs that you've kind of inherited from the previous Modern Meets the Eye where you've not wanted to change them, which you just really enjoy drawing, which you love the designs for and stuff like that?
I don't want to mess with any of the designs really, as I said earlier on, because of just the continuity issues. I'm a massive, very nearly fell over then, that would have been disastrous. I'm a massive fan of Alex's work, but we are very different. So although I didn't want to change any of the designs, because that's what has come before, and it would be the height of ego for me to come in and say, yes, well we're very different stylistically, so I'm going to really push that envelope by changing everything
into clouds,
which did cross my mind. Yeah, I'm very precious about those designs that have gone before, while doing everything I can to not appear to be copying what Alex did. It's hard when you're referencing a design. If you're referencing a design of a character, you are obviously looking at that character drawn by another artist. It's very difficult not to become influenced by the artist, so that you're only referencing the design and not referencing the art style, which is why I do my own character reference stuff, which starts using Alex's designs, and then incredible designs, using those, but then finding my own way with them. So no, there's no one who. Rodimus and Megatron I particularly enjoy drawing. I think they're both incredible design. Rodimus is Nick's design, right? Yeah, so that's two artists, two different artists. So Rodimus, Nick Roach's design, Megatron, Alex's design, both fantastic, and I love drawing them both. And I hope that I've kept them familiar, but with my own spin on them.
Hello, James. Sometimes you take characters like, say, Starsaver or Getaway, who have established heroic portrayals in other media, and you essentially turn them a bit evil. Do you ever worry about the effect that'll have on dedicated fans of those characters, or does the thought of it just make you laugh?
Did that? I mean, well, to take those two examples, so Getaway and Starsaver. With Starsaver, I mean, I guess I'll just be honest. Okay, so I think Starsaver's a really cool-looking character. Even at that stage in the game, 3 years ago, we were running out of, because I get criticised for not using pre-existing characters as well. So, but at that stage of the game, we were running out of G1 characters, particularly sort of iconic-looking characters or famous characters we hadn't used yet. So Starsaver was available. So I thought, well, I want to bring him in. He looks great, but I have a need for a character who, I mean, everyone's very quick to say that he's villainous, and he is villainous, but he was the successor to Ultra Magnus in terms of being the duly appointed enforcer and so on. Okay, by that point Tyrus had gone off the rails, but and Starsaver was very enthusiastically carrying out Tyrus' will in the context of Luna 1. But I think you can go too far in saying that Starsaver was a horrible person. That said, I'm well aware that his portrayal prior to that is of a Thunderclash type character. He's incredibly heroic and noble. Did it bother me that I was changing his personality? Not really, to be honest, because I thought in Western media he hadn't featured, I don't think, ever before. and we'd had other characters who were underrepresented or hadn't been featured before, and I'd given them different personalities. So it didn't bother me. I was a little bit surprised at the force with which some people sort of pushed back against that. I can understand it now, but at the time I was surprised that some people sort of took so against that portrayal of Starsail. But with Getaway, no, Getaway needed to be somebody who was slightly better known and had appeared in Marvel comics before, but I wanted Getaway to be trusted and liked and charismatic and so on, so that his betrayal, his switch was all the more surprising.
Right, our last one.
Slightly odd given that Lost Light's only really got going, but here we are, we're 6 years in or 3 seasons in, and you've always said there's a beginning, middle and end, but things have come, Megatron and launching Lost Light. Is the beginning, middle and end still pretty much how you saw it? Have things moved, and how far are we getting there?
The biggest deviation from the plan is Megatron's fate. So I mentioned that already. In all other respects, we're pretty much where we need to be. Things are proceeding as planned. In terms of beginning, middle and end, we're definitely past the middle. We're definitely past the middle. And you know what, I mean, if we can squeeze in a few more quick questions, I'm happy to. It's gone very quickly, and I know I'm conscious that we talked a lot at the beginning, and we didn't open questions till quite late, so I don't know if you want to...
Given the signal, I don't know. Okay, I'm making an executive decision. I'm thinking,
let's have the equivalent.
This lad I saw had his hand up for a while. We're going to go one more from this guy here. Executive decision.
Okay, if it's a quick question, then it's a quick question to Jack. You said that you definitely had an affinity for any Transformer that has a beast mode. So if you have a golden ticket for any Transformer from any continuity to get straight through the Swerve traditions, who would you add to the Lost Light of your choice?
Ruckus. Ruckus is my favourite Transformer. When I was a kid, I used to go down to Toys R Us with my best friend, and we'd each buy a Transformer, and they were usually of an equivalent size, and therefore it took us long to transform, write stickers, retake their biocards to each other, all that sort of business. This particular weekend was his birthday, and he bought Scorponok, and I bought Ruckus. So he spent about 3.5 days working out how to do Scorponok stickers, and I had Ruckus. And there's only so many times you can make the guns go. But I formed this bond and relationship with Ruckus that lives to this day. And I think his character, his personality is brilliant. Just gets shot to absolute bits, but just keeps going. I love him. So yeah, I would add Ruckus. Last time we saw him, he was being trodden on by Thunderwing, I think, in the IDW continuity. If anyone can survive being trodden on by Thunderwing, it's Ruckus.
I like Ruckus too. What are the chances, James?
Of Ruckus being back in the mix? Well, is he dead?
No, he's Ruckus.
Then it's a given. He's obviously going to be front and centre.
Okay, well, I think we have to bring it to an end there, so we can have a big hand.
Can I just,
He's interrupting me.
Yeah, sorry. I know. I was saying before, it's like let's make this like a Q&A lock-in. We'll just pretend. I feel I don't want you to feel shortchanged. I want to give you some insight into what's coming up in Lost Light. Okay? So some of you will know some of this. Some of it will be new. So okay, so we've got part 2 of the Trojan Major storyline wrapping up with this Unite coming out. Then we've got a 3-part Mutineers trilogy set exclusively and entirely on the Lost Light. So all your favourite locations and characters are going to be back in sort of heightened circumstances. So questions I've had questions put to me, well, how do the Autobots under Getaway's command feel about Getaway? Feel about what he did? How have they reacted since their crewmates were abandoned on Necroworld? How is Getaway keeping control of the crew? How disciplined is he? How disciplined is the quest? And all these things will be answered. And I think every character outside of the main cast that you have seen to date in More Than Meets the Eye and Lost Light has a role to play in this story. Okay, so that's happening. Then we're back with Rodimus and crew on Skip as they give chase, and that's in a story called Sardines, which is a one-off and sort of a return to the perhaps more light-hearted stuff which we did on More Than Meets the Eye from time to time. And then not long after that is the return of the Scavengers. In a very pivotal and important storyline for them, and one in which sort of in many ways brings elements of their tale to a conclusion. So that's a very important one for them. And then we're on to our next phenomenally large story, which is going to change a lot of things. And if you think of the last sort of 5.5 years as being us, various combinations of the creative team playing around in the sandpit that is sort of the More Than Meets the Eye universe, we're just going to dredge that. There are so many things that are going to happen, and characters that you're going to meet again in unusual circumstances. So that really is our next big sort of epic.
And with that,